Hey guys, welcome to Fantasy Effect episode 59. We got combine winners and losers. We're brought to you by Dynasty Theory in partnership with Dynasty Daddy, and as always, Fantasy Football Infinity. Holler and the McSpankster are here with me tonight. How's it going, guys?
Really good. Glad that we're through the combine. Our next stop is free agency and then the draft. So we're cruising through this offseason already.
Yes, sir. Days are flying by. I think it's for me. It's because I'm on. They call it baby bonding now. So I have no work.
Yeah.
So I've just been watching some players. I've been sleeping in, hanging out with the baby. I'm working on my rankings here. So I finished my rookies today. We're doing good. We're doing good.
Very
Awesome. They do not give me baby bonding. I burned all my vacation days, but then I found out I had some more, so we're okay.
Yeah, mine. I'm like, well, also a little. It's like California too gives paid family leave. So
California.
yeah. So there's some pros and cons in here in the beautiful state of California.
Yeah, I bet it's very beautiful. Okay, should we get into the news? Enough of this chit chat. I do baby stuff all day.
Yes.
So we got Mike Evans. He's got a new deal, 2 years, $52 million, $35 million guaranteed. What do you think? What do you know?
It's really good news for Baker.
Yep.
I think probably good news for Evans too. I think he probably could have got more money elsewhere, but this is a good deal for him to stay in Tampa. I think 2 years. He's probably going to retire at the end of this deal because he's already 29, right? Or is he going into year 30? That's probably the end of his at least good playing days. So this is big news for the Tampa offense.
Yeah, I mean, I also think it's good for Chris Godwin, just because I felt like if Mike Evans would go somewhere else, and I felt like Chris Godwin was kind of, going to be left for dust a little bit, not too much. I think he's still a good wide receiver, but I think for both of them, it's really good. And then I think the next coming days, or maybe once free agency opens up, I think Baker will be signed as well. So I think Tampa, their front office is doing a really good job, like keeping the band together. And that team overall is solid. I think obviously they need a few more pieces, but if Baker can play well again, I think Tampa will be all right. And I think our fantasy shares will be pretty good with Mike Evans. And even I think Chris Godwin will have a better year next year. I feel it. I feel it in my bones.
Hopefully.
Yeah, let's hope so. The new OC said that they're going to use him like Cooper Kupp.
I would like that.
In their offense. This OC has been a little bit lackluster at all his stops. No more Dave Canales, so hopefully that doesn't send Baker back into Baker mode.
I felt like it was super weird to go from the Rams to Kentucky, and then now he's back in the NFL. It's like I don't love the signing of that offensive coordinator, like we talked about. I think it was last week, but just it's nice to hear they're going to use him like Cooper Kupp, but. I think overall this is really good for Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans is a good guy going back to Tampa. Not really looking for more money. He's just I think trying to grind out some more 1,000-yard seasons.
Definitely. Can he make it 13?
I'm thinking
no reason not to.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say let's get to 11 first. He's at 10. Let's hit 11.
Oh, I thought he's at 12 for some reason. Jeez.
I know. I think he's on number 10.
Just added a couple extras in there for you, Mike.
I saw I think it was yesterday, the day before on I think it's Sports Center or something. He's second behind Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice has had 11 seasons in a row for 1,000-yard seasons. That was his record. So I'm thinking that's what he's going for.
Yeah,
nice.
In the 80s and 90s. That's amazing. The greatest wide receiver ever. Anyway, I skipped one here. Colts place franchise tag on Michael Pittman. What do you guys think about that?
It's probably less exciting for Pittman, given Anthony Richardson as a passer, but it's good for the Colts, I think. It's good for Richardson to have someone like Michael Pittman, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Selfishly, I was kind of hoping Pittman was going to go somewhere a little more pass-heavy, just because I think he is a good wide receiver, but I don't know. It is what it is. It sounds like they're still kind of working towards a long-term deal. They just didn't quite get it done before the deadline. Greg in the chat said it's the right call for the Colts, definitely. Definitely the right decision for them. I think it was the easy thing to bring him back. That wide receiver room outside of Michael Pittman. I mean, it's Josh Downs and Alec Pierce. We know what he is, and it's not a good wide receiver. They needed some upgrades there.
Yeah, I was making my rankings, and I was like, okay, I got to keep Anthony Richardson here, like top 12 for sure. And then I was thinking, well, dang, if Michael Pittman left, goodness gracious, I probably would have to drop him down a bit more because we already know Richardson's not the greatest passer, and so if they're rolling out Josh Downs and Alec Pierce, that's not so good. So I think it's really, really good for the Colts and really good for Anthony Richardson.
Definitely.
But I'm with you, Spanky. I was kind of hoping he was, he's had really good seasons, right? With solid solid quarterbacks, and so he can play well with Minshew. I think he can play well with mini quarterbacks.
Yeah, definitely. I've always been a big Michael Pittman fan.
Yep.
And definitely solid player for sure. Well, we got the Giants. They're not expected to franchise tag Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, so I guess he's going to test free agency. Supposedly he's been kind of chatting with CJ Stroud, who's really interested in joining the Texans. I'm not sure if the Texans have cap. Actually, they do. They have quite a bit of cap space.
They have a lot of cap space.
And they have a need at running back. I think that would be sweet to see Saquon, CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, Nico. That offense, they just re-signed Dalton Schultz. It'd be good looking offense.
They did.
Yeah, so this morning I was driving to get some coffee and I was listening to the radio, and they talked about how now Houston is like a attraction for free agents to go, like a more attractive team to go for free agents to go to. And I think Saquon dropping him in there in Houston with really good coach, good quarterback, I think that would be good for Saquon, good for the Texans. So I think it's the right call with the Giants. They don't need to tag him. I think all these running backs, it's, in my opinion, a good idea to not tag them and, test free agency versus having to pay them and you're not really knowing exactly what you're going to get. And I was going to say the Giants already tagged him last year. And so they know, they kind of know what Saquon is. And I think Saquon and the Giants are kind of going in different directions, to be honest.
For sure. And the thing I was going to say about the tag is just the franchise tag for running backs this year is just under $12 million, I think, which is probably about the annual deal these guys are going to get, right? Yeah. But with a multi-year contract, you can move those numbers around so it's not all on the cap. And this year, if you franchise tag them, it is all on this year's cap. So if you franchise tag the running back, you might end up paying them the same, but you're paying it all up front as opposed to spreading it over across multiple years. So you're kind of doing yourself a disservice to franchise tag a running back at this point.
Yeah, Houston has $70 million available in cap space. That's good for fourth in the league right now, behind the Commanders, Titans, and Patriots.
Good team, and they're going to get They're going to get better. So I think they're going to be pretty good next year.
How bad are the Giants going to be though if Saquon's gone? It's
terrible.
Daniel Jones and
I don't terrible.
Who's was Eric Gray? Is that the backup in New York right now?
I think it is, but I was going to say who knows, but it's Eric Gray. It doesn't look good. I'm sure they'll get some stop back, somebody that can fill the year, like a Zach Moss or somebody like that. They don't have to pay much money. But yeah, I was going to that's what I was leading into. It's not going to be good. Not going to be pretty for fantasy. Stay away from Giants for fantasy perspective.
They're all bad.
Okay. Yes. That's not bad, Bill. AJ Dillon to overall, that's not bad for the Giants, but I don't. No, thank you.
Yeah.
AJ Dillon already doesn't have good vision behind the offensive line. Good God. Poor guy.
Right.
Match made in heaven, right there.
2.2 yards per carry. Let's go.
According to our lads, Eric Gray is the fourth running back on the list. That's with Saquon and Matt Breida, who are both free agents. They are actually listing Gary Brightwell ahead of Eric Gray on the depth chart.
Either way, I don't think it matters too much.
Ron, are you on that depth chart as well? Goodness gracious.
Yep. I see it here, running back 7, Ronald Cavalier. All right. Finally got a contract. Can't wait to die.
There we go.
Can't do any worse than what they got.
No, man. No, I can't. It can't be that bad. I could hit a hole. I'm pretty sure I could do it. I got 4 kids.
Sure. I was waiting to see if that's where that was heading. You did not
It wasn't,
disappoint.
but
Let's go.
then it was there. I took it. Anyway, okay. Broncos are going to release the Broncos are going to release Russell Wilson. They are eating $84 million in dead cap because of this release. I think it has a lot to do with the trend of the roster. I don't think him and Sean Payton ever got along. What are your guys' thoughts? Where's Russ going to go?
That's what I was trying to figure out. It seems like the betting favorite right now is the Steelers at -200, and then the Raiders, Falcons, Patriots for the next 3 teams. Honestly, the Steelers makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
At this point, though, this might be a little harsh, but is Russ that much better than Kenny Pickett? Like, I think he is, but how much?
So, I want to say on like an intelligence level, but like Russ will just do like they had the whole weird wristband thing, and they had like all kinds of stuff. So you can't even say Russ, go out there and just like use your experience in the league and help us get to the right play at the right time. Like, you don't know, he's just a wild card out there.
So I agree 100%, but I have to disagree with yeah, he is much better than Pickett. I just think like overall in Denver, just him and Sean Payton from the beginning just didn't work out. And so I think a new change of scenery, I think would be good for Russell Wilson. Now, I'm not saying he's drastically better than Kenny Pickett, but I think overall that team would do better with Russell Wilson than it would with Kenny Pickett. And so in terms of, so just flat out, yes, I think Russell Wilson is better than Kenny Pickett.
I mean, yes, like in a vacuum, but is the situation any better in Pittsburgh for Russell? Like in terms of who he's throwing to? Like, I mean, Pickens is kind of what he is. Deontay Johnson sounds like he wants out. That's what I'm saying.
So
and the offensive coaching staff isn't nearly as creative as Sean Payton is, right?
So I agree with that.
Pickens is kind of a head case too, you know. Like, I mean, if Cortland Sutton did get a ball, Cortland Sutton isn't going to chuck his helmet and go pout on the sidelines and flip out and make Instagram posts about it. Like, Pickens has done all these things already. Like, imagine if he has superstar Russ, you know, that can't get him the ball.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I have a hard time with this one. I don't really know where he's going to go, but I feel like, unfortunately, Spanky, I have like this hunch he might end up in Las Vegas. Yeah, so I think it's more he would want to go there versus the actual, like, the team would want him, right?
It was on his trade list back in the day.
I don't think Antonio Pierce wants him. It sounded like he really wants to draft his quarterback as opposed to trading for one.
Which is very smart. And so that's what I mean is I think Russell Wilson wants to go there, but I think maybe he ends up in, I think New England. I don't know. I think he actually end up like, it might be after the draft we find out where he goes, right? Unless somebody just, you know, gives him money really cheap. Just because I think there's some things that need to be ironed out with like quarterbacks in the draft before, but I don't know. It's weird that free agency is before the draft. And
so I could see New England, Washington. Minnesota.
Yeah. Minnesota makes sense. Supposedly they were talking about getting Trey Lance.
Oh God.
Tells me they're just desperate for anybody.
Like Jake tells us all the time in the Discord, they've been talking about getting Trey Lance since he graduated high school because he went
he's from Minnesota.
He's from Minnesota, yeah. Like he's always linked to Minnesota. I get it. And you know, we ourselves linked Justin Fields to Atlanta because he's from Atlanta. You know, that was kind of part of the thing.
Sounded like that was going to happen, but not anymore. It looks like. Is Justin Fields going to end up anywhere? That's the other thing, because it seems like he's been running out of teams too, right? Like, it feels like Atlanta wanted him, and then Pittsburgh wanted him. But it sounded like Pittsburgh rescinded their offer for him. It sounds like Atlanta's now moved on to Kirk Cousins. Like, where's Fields going to go? Where's Russ going to go? Like, and who's going to settle for these guys who aren't going to help them win a Super Bowl? So
I like this here, which is kind of goes in line with Spanky asking if Pickett's any better or Russ is any better than Pickett. Bill's asking if Russ even plays, and that is a good question. Like it's now that we talk about it and we like bring up like all these teams that need a quarterback, there's solid quarterbacks in the draft that I think they would rather have, right? Or they'd rather maybe bring in, like I said before, after the draft, bring in Russ is like, okay, Russ, help us, bridge this year while we train up whoever we get in the draft, right? And so I think it'd be like I don't know, it's hard to say, maybe like a Michael Penix or something like that, versus just throwing out Michael Penix in year one, and then So I just think it really, there's a lot of dominoes I think will need to fall before we really can find out where Russ will go.
Yeah, for sure. And we got Tim in here saying Fields ended up in Vegas, and it makes sense, with the OC familiarity if they want to. Sorry, McSpanky.
It just doesn't make sense.
The Raiders are also known to do some crazy things though too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
it's a different regime, so
but same owner.
Giving them the benefit of the doubt. And their excuse for hiring Luke Getsy was we didn't think he was a problem. We thought Justin Fields was the problem in Chicago. So it doesn't make sense that they would want to hire or sign or trade for Fields when they basically flat out said like we didn't think Getsy was the issue.
I'm pretty now that they think Fields is the issue and not Getsy.
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident that Antonio Pierce wants to get his own quarterback, right? And so I think they move up.
They want Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, so I think they move up, and I don't know. A lot of these quarterbacks, like the only ones I feel like I have I'm really comfortable with Baker going back to Tampa. I think that's going to happen. I think Kirk Cousins will. That one's tough. Like all these quarterbacks, it's really hard to figure out where they're going, and I think a lot of spots are running out because I think a lot of these spots that need quarterbacks it's going to be a rookie.
Yeah, for so much quarterback issue across the league, as I'm going through the list, like he can't go to New York with Aaron Rodgers.
That'd be pretty funny.
I mean, if the Giants can't trade up, because it sounds like the Giants are trying to trade up and get into a rookie quarterback, would they do it? Just like if Daniel Jones just shits the bed and they're just like, we have to do something.
Maybe
the Giants were on Russ's initial list, right? Because he wanted to go to New York.
Yeah, you'd really love that big old the media out there.
He would do so well with the New York media.
Yeah, right. That would be great. I'm with Greg. I want Cousins back in Minnesota as well.
I do too. As much as I hate it as a Lions fan,
I'd prefer him in Atlanta. Actually, I think the situation's better for him.
You think so?
Well, I mean, he already played in a Shanahan office in Washington, and it was really good. And now
same thing.
Well, I know. And I think, outside of, I guess Jefferson, Addison, and then Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan. It might be apples to apples, honestly.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was
different.
Thinking. It's like,
and so it's fun.
But, both really good.
Yeah, definitely some very good weapons.
But to me, I think we could spend like a whole episode on all these quarterbacks and end up not even figuring out where, like, feeling comfortable. Be like, I think this guy's going to go here. This guy's going to go here. Like, at the end of the day, I still think that's like the spots are running out, and I think a lot of coaches or a lot of teams would rather have the new hot piece of a rookie versus these washed up quarterbacks outside of Baker and Kirk Cousins.
Sorry, I thought you were going somewhere else with the hot piece. That really took me back. I lost all my train of thought there on the quarterback. Free agency is next week. So the legal tampering period starts on Monday, and then they can actually sign on Wednesday. So this time next week, we might actually know where some of these quarterbacks are going, which I think will start to shape the actual NFL draft too. Because let's say the Giants do decide to get Russ, or maybe like New England does, right? Then all of a sudden, New England's willing to move on off a 3 to a quarterback needy team who wants to move up and take that, Jaden Daniels or whoever it may be, or JJ McCarthy, if you believe some of the smoke that's out there. So,
JJ McCarthy is going to be super interesting. What happens with him? But let's move on to something else before we talk about Russ all day. JB will love the episode.
Well,
Anyway, Panthers have released Hayden Hurst. We kind of talked about the Texans signing Dalton Schultz. Zach Ertz signs the Commanders. Anything huge with any of those things?
I mean, I think Schultz in Houston's
Yeah,
nice for the team, probably more than it is for Schultz. I think CJ Stroud typically threw the ball, spread it around a little bit more than just targeting Schultz. So I don't know how fantasy relevant he's going to be. But Zach Ertz and the Commanders is interesting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a.
That's got to be more of like a veteran to help younger guys there, right? More than it is anything. Yes. He can't have much left in the tank.
And I also think it's, Cliff Kingsbury knows him. I think that's another connection. I just think all these, I think Dalton Schultz, that's nice. I still think he's like solid around top 12, like 10 to 12 range, I think in tight ends is where he's at. And I don't think he really elevates himself much. I think he's kind of just meh, but I think it's nice. It's nice to be connected to CJ Stroud, for fantasy terms. Like he didn't have a really great season, but I think it's nice. I'd much rather him go back to Houston than like go and play for the Patriots or something like that and get lost.
Our comments are out of control.
I just turned my head
unhinged. But you say one thing about hot pieces, next thing you know, are just out of control. Is Laporta going to blow up another Earth Lions? You could argue he already did. It's a possibility. He did have a tight end one season last year, so we shall see.
My life just keeps changing on me. Anyway,
Hayden Hurst is gone, so Tommy Tremble, let's go.
The trembling,
There's no way they got to be drafting someone or signing someone or paying Mike Gesicki a stupid amount of money.
Oh God, Mike Gesicki's out there, isn't he? It's Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry's coming to Carolina.
Why not both? It worked out well in New England.
Well, it worked out well for the Hog Daddy. He's a touchdown machine.
That's right.
It did.
Okay, so do we think the 24 class is better or worse than the 23 class?
I'll let you answer that first because I don't know.
Loaded question, in my opinion.
Super loaded.
Yeah, so I think 23 had better a couple top end pieces, but overall, I think 24 is. Well, let me rephrase. I think 23 had better top end running backs. I think 24 has better top end wide receivers. Obviously, I still need to see a little bit more from Caleb. I think he's more. I think he's a little bit of a hothead, so I just need to see where. I think he ends up obviously in Chicago, right? But I think he's a little bit of a hothead. I don't think in the end it will really hurt him too much. So I think some of the top end pieces are around the same as 23, but I think 24 has much more depth, especially at wide receiver.
I think the 24 class, like the very top of it, like the top, like let's say like 6-7 picks, is probably better than the top 6 or 7 picks from 23. Just I think the quarterbacks are a little bit better, and I think the wide receivers have a higher. Well, it's hard to say, but I think the receivers are a little bit better than the running backs were last year. I mean, it might be more apples to apples, but I really think the quarterbacks are better. But then kind of the back end of the first, I like the 23 class better because that's where we had guys like, Dalton Kincaid, Laporta, Save Flowers, which I think is better than some of the take your pick on the back end of these guys, these wide receivers in the 24 class, the Donnie Mitchells or, Xavier Worthies or Troy Franklin's, Lad McConkey's, whoever it is that you want in the back of the first. I think I feel more comfortable with some of the guys that were going last year in 23, but so it's a little bit of both. But I don't know. It's close for sure.
Yes. And that part of me feels like we kind of do this every year. So I think it really is just every year has, which I like, is every year is a little bit different. Like, I was just going to say something like that. It's like QBs are better, wide receivers are better, running backs and tight ends are down. So like, obviously we have Brock Bowers at tight end, but overall We had we had 3 really good tight ends last year. And so, yeah, I really like how Wes put that in.
We might have the tight ends might surprise you this year. There's quite a few that are. I mean, obviously there's Brock Bowers at the top, but I mean, some like Jatavian Sanders. There's that Theo Johnson who's out there, Kate Stover, Ben Sinnott. Those are guys that are a little. They're sneaky good. I think could end up. Ron's shaking his head. He doesn't agree with me. That's fine, but I think some of these guys are. I mean, obviously we're not going to have the tight end one, again like we had in Laporta, but I mean. Some of these guys are sneaky. I think they're going to find their way into day 2 draft capital, and they're gonna produce for us. There's some good spots out there where there's teams that need tight ends, and these guys are more than capable of filling some of those roles.
Yep, absolutely. We kind of talked about it last week, so I'm going to wait a little bit on what I was going to talk about. Some tight ends here. Should we get into these winners first? Ron, we can't hear you.
Ron, I think you're muted. While he figures that out, let's get through some of the combine winners. I think you got to start with Xavier Worthy, right? I mean, he set the NFL combine record at a 4.21 for the 40-yard dash. Okay, so that's pretty much played him into a top 50 pick, right? Like, running that fast. Yeah. Whether he could do anything with the ball in his hands is another story. He's going to get the draft capital now. But the real question is, so he came in, I mean, what was he's like 165 or something? Like, or
he came in super light.
It was super light. Can he do anything but run fast?
Let me pull up this tweet I was looking at the other day, and I think he can as well. We've been talking about it in our chat, and so me and Ron are a little bit. We like him a little bit more than Spanky does, and I really liked Xavier Worthy. I play a bit of Debbie, and so I really liked Xavier Worthy after his freshman year. He put up really, really good numbers his freshman year. Sophomore year, I'm trying to pull up the tweet so I can actually give you guys numbers. But his sophomore year, he was a bit down, and then last year he was solid, right? And so I think, in my opinion, when you're watching tape, I think his routes, he has really crisp routes. He runs routes really well, and his speed, he can really burn DBs and quarterbacks and all those guys really well. Part of me thinks, he is. Like he can have better hands. He's very small, so I think obviously he's going to need to burn everybody in order for him to. But then again, there is some tape that I've seen where he is able to. Obviously, it's only one, but I saw him, kind of run over another smaller defender. Obviously, that defender was small. I looked it up and I was like, okay, well, how did he do this? That defender was a little bit smaller, but that's like one of the big. Like if you look up on Twitter, that's a big video that they all show. That was one time. So, I wanted to dive in a little bit more. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. But then I dove in a little bit more. And so I just think overall, I think he's a really, really good player. But I would not argue anybody that doesn't take him to like 202 versus somebody that takes him like 110, right? I think that's like the sweet spot for him. And so, with these speed, there's like a John Ross, and we know John Ross did nothing. Then
Darius Hayward-Bay.
There's all these really fast guys that have done nothing. But in my opinion, I don't think that's him.
Yeah, I agree with Holler. Hold on, McSpanky. Let me tell you about it real quick. I think he's a lot tougher than what that 165 suggests. And we also just watched Tank Dell. I know Tank Dell got hurt, but Tank Dell was able to succeed. And given the right system, a smart coach, it's definitely going to be landing spot dependent and usage dependent for him at his size. But dude, he can he's just getting bubble screens and he's beating everybody off the angle. And it does take multiple guys to take him down. Honestly, for somebody at 165, I thought I was going to see him getting blown up at all times. And it doesn't really look like the weight affects him all that much, to be honest. But there was one really funny play against Oklahoma. If you guys can find it, he doesn't get the ball, he runs like a post or something, and the safety just pops him and just decleats.
That's okay.
Oh,
So one thing, Tank Dell, yes, they're both 165. Tank Dell's a good 3 inches shorter than Xavier Worthy is, so he's a little stockier.
sure.
So he holds the weight better. He
That's
does.
fair.
Worthy's he's slim, dude. And the one thing that I have seen from him is that he runs fast. He does get separation. I don't think his hands are all that great. And I do have flashbacks to Darius Hayward, but I'm glad you brought that up because that's who I think of every time I watch him. And now, granted, he had some moments. DHB had some moments. They weren't great, but he did have some moments. And Worthy, I just don't see him being anything other than just like a burner. Like I don't think he's going to be someone that you feel good about putting in your lineup each week. You're just, if you put him in there, you're just hoping like, well, shit, I hope he, hits a 60-yarder and goes to the house. Otherwise, he might end up with like, 3 catches for like 27 yards. And Deshaun Jackson was the same way for a long time. So,
so that's my comparison. Is I kind of feel like Xavier Worthy is a Deshaun Jackson. So I picked up these stats for Worthy. His freshman year, he had 981 yards for 12 touchdowns. So that's he like boomed onto the scene, right? Sophomore year, he had only 760 yards and 9 touchdowns, and then last year he had 1,000 yards and 75 receptions, but only 5 touchdowns. So I think he was 62 receptions year 1, 60, then 75. So I know some people were like, hey, I feel like he, is a bit, there's concerns with his staying on the field, but
fast.
Yeah, but he stayed on the field his junior year. And so I don't know. I think overall, he is going to be a better NFL player than fantasy player, right? He's somebody that you want on your team, but maybe not on your fantasy team, right? Sure. But I have a soft spot for him just because I took him in a Devy and a couple Devies, and I've watched him since he was a freshman.
How would you feel if he ended up in Baltimore or Kansas City at the back of the first round?
So I've seen, I would feel. I really liked what you said, Mick Spanky, the other day, and so I would feel good in Kansas City. But you brought up a really good point. In Kansas City, you don't feel comfortable with how they are with wide receivers, right? They haven't drafted very good ones outside of Rashee Rice. They haven't traded for very good ones. They just, so it made me rethink that. But it would be cool to see him with someone like Patrick Mahomes, right? I think that's what he needs in order for him to be fantasy relevant. Is you're going to need one of those big catches per game in order for him to translate into a good fantasy wide receiver.
He could be, MVS, but actually catch the ball. Probably,
correct.
Instead of just dropping it with this alligator arms.
If he does that, it's all wheels up, man.
I do think he's Jameson Williams like, absolutely.
Yeah, he's a little worrisome.
Which is not
Williams.
Year 3 glow up, dude. Year 3 glow up. Don't worry about it, guys. It's coming. It is coming. I'm keeping the faith. All right. Let's move on to Holler's guy, Brian Thomas Jr. Before we get all hot and bothered about Brian Thomas Jr., can I
you go ahead.
Okay. Dude can't run routes, man. He can run straight line fast. Excuse me. And that's about it. If Brian Thomas can get somewhere, I've seen him mock to Buffalo. I don't think after his 40 time, he's going to last that long in the draft because at whatever size, I can't remember how tall he is off the top of my head, but running a 4.34 and 6'3" and probably plus 200 pounds.
209.
It was super smooth too. Like it did look really good. Like he was just gliding out there, but I think he's a really great athlete. I don't know about the rest of his game at all. I didn't like the effort I saw on plays where he wasn't getting the ball. Jaden Daniels is scrambling out of the pocket. And he's just kind of standing there, like looking around like, dude, run towards the quarterback. He will throw the ball to you on the move. And maybe it is a learning curve and he's just got to learn a few things. I think he's going to get overdrafted.
For sure. After he did that, and to be honest, his 4.33 or 4.34, whatever it was, at 209.63, like that's more impressive to me than Xavier Worthy out there in the 4.21 at little itty bitty weight. So,
Sure.
I love watching a big man run like that. That's always just it's just like it tricks your eye. You're like, this dude should not be running this fast,
right?
But and this isn't fair to the prospect, right? Because this has nothing to do with him. But like we've seen guys like this who, like Kevin White comes to mind, right? Who they're just big, tall, fast dudes who can't run routes, and they don't succeed in the NFL, right?
Oh,
they just don't. So I saw a lot of the same thing, and from the scouts that I've listened to, like the draft dudes, for example, they've brought that same thing up that they don't think he runs routes well. He's very raw.
I was so excited when they said
that.
I was like, big. Yes, I knew it.
Like, and frankly, I don't. Your effort thing was spot on. Like, it doesn't seem like if he knows he's not getting the ball, he's not running routes all that hard, which I can't imagine NFL coaching staffs really liking. So he's another one that I am probably going to be out on just because I have him more in like the early second round, and I think guys in Superflex rookie drafts, he's going to go probably like 109, 110, 111, somewhere in that range. And there are guys I prefer that I just feel better about.
Yeah. So I've done some more watching of Brian Thomas. I think what got me at first was just like, dang, he had some really good stats. And I think mainly the reason he had those good stats is because the defenders were just draped all over Malik Neighbors. Right?
That's what I was going to bring up is like everybody's worried about what the hell Neighbors is doing because the dude is awesome.
So, but to me, when I was watching more, like it's really alarming that he doesn't give full effort, right? And so there could be some teams that he could be really good with, but they might not overlook, but like they might move past him because he's not giving 100% effort all the time, right? And for him, exactly what Spanky said is like there's other guys that I would feel more comfortable with. Right now, I have him as my wide receiver 4, but I honestly, depending on landing spot, I'm going to shift those once I do. But I would feel more comfortable with Ladd McConkey, Troy Franklin. Like I know Troy Franklin, we'll talk about in a little bit. He was one of our losers, but overall, I just think he is a 100% guy all the time. And so I just feel like he's kind of the opposite of Brian Thomas. And so I just think for me overall, it really depends on landing spot.
The latest projection I saw for Brian Thomas was up at 17 to Jacksonville.
I've seen that too.
Wow, he went from the back end of the first, skyrocketed up to mid.
So
second.
Would you guys like that as a good landing spot? Like I personally think that's
yeah.
I honestly feel like that's a good landing spot. Like he could kind of not really take over, but like he could be like dropping that Ridley spot a little bit. I'm not saying he's anywhere near.
I don't know, man.
But like
Ridley cookie on a route, dude.
Yes, that's what I'm just saying. He'd drop in that spot.
Yeah, get the target share.
It's a good.
I would like him.
I still don't trust the talent.
That's fair.
Brian Thomas Jr. Like I just don't trust.
My favorite one that I kept seeing was to the Buffalo Bills at the back end of the first, but he's not going to last that long anymore because of his skill set. Big man run fast. Josh Allen huck ball downfield. You know what I mean? Like on a scramble drill. But then again, it goes to that, like, if you're not putting in the effort when Josh Allen's back there running circles and stuff, like you're not going to get the ball, dude. So it's kind of, hit or miss here. But I definitely a scrambling quarterback. Would you think he would have excelled even more with Jaden Daniels than what we saw on tape, to be honest? But
for sure.
Should we move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Talk about somebody who does like to give 100% effort.
Yeah. Mr. Ladd McConkey out of Georgia.
This is my wide receiver 4, by the way. I feel really good about Ladd McConkey.
Ooh, baby. Dude,
he had a good 40 time. And,
yes.
And did you guys watch the clip of him running the gauntlet too? Just looks so smooth. Yeah. Like, and he never like broke speed. Even when he like turned, he just he didn't get used a ton at Georgia. And I don't know why. They have this weird thing. They just run the ball and they don't really use their receivers, even though they usually have a ton of talented ones. But he's so talented. And I think his combine performance I think he kind of locked himself into a top 40, top 50 pick. And I love the effort he gives and the work ethic. And like, I think he runs really good routes. I think he's fast. He's got good hands. He's got everything you would want in a wide receiver. And I think, I mean, there's some teams that he could go to kind of in the top of the second round that I think could be really good. The Chargers come to mind, even Arizona.
Yeah.
I mean, Tennessee. Yeah. I mean, outside of if they keep Hopkins and Treylon Burks, he is what he is. But they brought in the Brian Callahan from Cincinnati. Like that could be a nice little landing spot with Will Levis. So.
Yep. Yeah. I have him down at wide receiver 6 right now, but honestly, I'm gonna wait till after the draft to redo mine. But like, I could totally easily flip McConkey and Brian Thomas, and I think if I was on the clock at like 109, 108, and I'm staring at Ladd McConkey and Brian Thomas, and Ladd McConkey goes to like the Chargers, I'm smashing Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, you are.
Ooh, baby, hot sizzle. I'm happy that Brian Thomas did what he did because it was extremely hard to move back into the first picks. I was trying very early on in the offseason, and nobody really cared for them at all. So that should really boost that trade value back there for sure. Hopefully you can move back and get some lads, but I clicked off the thing. I was happy to see Ladd run that fast 40 as well. It just kind of confirmed everything on tape, especially with the routes, man.
Yep.
Okay. Trey Benson, 4.3940. Woo, woo, woo.
Yeah, he was a fast boy, and he was good size still. So that was really exciting to see. He had a good measurements, ran really fast. I think that pretty much locked him up as being the first running back off the board.
Absolutely.
If Jonathan Brooks was healthy and not coming off a torn ACL, I think there could have been a little back and forth on that. But I think Trey Benson, honestly, I think he's going to go in the second round somewhere. So I think, we've kind of been down on the running back class, but I think Benson and Brooks are the two that I actually feel pretty confident about. And
yep.
I mean, Jonathan Brooks too, like he didn't get to compete obviously because he's coming off the torn ACL, but it sounds like his recovery is going really well and he should be back before training camp. So I'm not overly concerned there. I think he's still going to get draft capital. And I think there are two running backs that are going to be fantasy relevant. And we can get into some of the other ones that kind of fell on their face at the combine a little bit in a minute, but Trey Benson, I mean, I think Ron, you shared the NFL scouts kind of quotes or whatever, and they basically said Trey Benson was walking as a top 60 pick, so which is all you can really ask for.
Absolutely,
definitely.
Yeah, he definitely secured my RB1 for my running backs. And I have Jonathan Brooks as my RB2. And I think Brooks, like you said, would be RB1 if he didn't get injured. That was kind of a pretty bummer of an injury. And so I like both of those two guys a lot. I think they're both going to get the draft capital, and I think not anywhere, but any place they go, I feel comfortable with drafting them 2-1, 2-2. Even if I'm running back needy at 112, I would wouldn't argue anybody taking Trey Benson in the first round. So I've done a few mocks, and people have taken him at 112, but I haven't seen. That's the earliest I've seen a running back go is 112, and I think just because how good this wide receiver class is, and like those 3, 4, 5, 6 running, or not even 3 because the top 3, but 4, 5, 6 wide receivers is kind of loading that in, and then I think also maybe there will be 4 quarterbacks that are probably going to go in that first round of the rookie draft. So, and then obviously we have Brock Bowers, but I wouldn't argue anybody that takes Trey Benson at 112 and then or 2-1. I have him at 2-1. So,
yeah, there's a running back that's going to sneak into the back end of the first. That's for sure. It's probably Blake Corum when he gets that Chargers landing spot. He's going to keep keep willing that one into existence.
Like Corum wishes he could do things these other running backs could do.
Listen, he'll be just fine. Don't you worry. As long as he gets with good old Jimmy boy, he'll be just fine. Okay, we got Theo Johnson. I haven't watched any Theo Johnson yet. I haven't got that far. A 10 out of 10 RAS score as a tight end. He's got some production in college. Yeah. What do you guys think about Theo?
I think for me, the reason he's a winner is because he kind of no one was really talking about him, and then he's an athletic freak apparently.
Yep.
Mhm.
I haven't watched any tape of him, but all of a sudden he's jumped up into like kind of back into the third, early fourth in mock drafts. So it sounds
Okay.
like he might start sneaking into relevant draft capital. It's going to depend on the landing spot, but I mean, if you're 6'6" and you can move the way he did, like, good lord, like a
Sure.
4.57 40, and I mean his shuttle and cone drill times were really good too. Like,
It's cooking.
dudes that big shouldn't be able to move like this, so that's
Jazz
exciting. And Penn State's offense is bad too, right? So you never know. It's hard to judge those guys, right? Because that offense is such a train wreck.
Yep. I was trying to see. Let me see if I can pull it up. I asked. So I'm a part of the Debbie Royale Discord, and I asked if we wanted, like, if we should care about Theo Johnson getting that 10 out of 10 RAS score. And somebody there responded to me, and they answered really well for me to go back and kind of look him up a little bit more. And basically, in a nutshell, what he said is that we should care, right? Because he's done a really good job. He's a bigger tight end, and I just think he can end up on a good team because he's not going to go too early. I think just he will probably end up like a day. I would want to say day 3 kind of guy, maybe. And so I just think he could be around, like, that there's kind of question marks after. Some people would argue to me that Jatavian Sanders kind of hurt himself at the combine. I still think he is tight end 2, but tight end 3 through like 6 is still open, right? And so I think I need to look in more into Theo, but I just think overall, like, he really, really helped himself. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
I'm finding it.
You put those scores up there. Well, while you look for that, Holler, I think we'll move on to Adonai Mitchell here. We kind of chatted about him in the chat a little bit. Yeah, we chatted about him in the chat. In the chat, right?
How did you pronounce his name?
Adonai. Is that not how you say it?
Pretty sure it's Adonai, right?
I don't know.
Don't ask me.
Oh, well, now
I always hear people say AD. Yeah. Listen, if you're coming to me for pronunciations, go somewhere else. I'll tell you that right now, Miss Foster. No, you're fine. But I hear a lot of people call him AD, so we'll just go AD for him. But anyway, so he is an athletic freak. He was a quarterback in high school. He converted to wide receiver. He transfers from Georgia to Texas. Has kind of some production, and he has some highlight reel kind of type deals, but then like in the middle, like there's nothing there. And there's another Ron that came into the chat, and him and I chatted about his lack of effort, and he
well, he
admitted it. Yeah. So
he said he doesn't run routes at full speed so that he can stay in the whole drive, which I get where he's coming from, but also if you maybe condition harder, I don't know, so you can run the full routes, or run full speed and take 3 plays off might do you better. Because when you see it, like, there's a couple of clips of him just cooking Alabama defensive backs, like guys who are going to be probably first round picks. Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold, right? Like, and he just scorches them like it's scorched earth, like they get left in the dust and not even in the frame anymore. And it's like, why can't you do that all the time? Because you see that, and if you just watch like a highlight reel of Adonai Mitchell, you're like, holy hell, this guy, how is he not a first-round draft pick? And then you start watching the full games, and you're like, oh, that's why. It's because it's like one play out of every like 40, he does something, and then he does nothing for like a long stretch of time.
What a lot of people like to point to him as is he's a gamer, though. When they need it and got to have it, they went his way with the ball, for what it's worth.
So yeah, he's
got like 6 touchdowns in the college football playoff or something. It's ridiculous between Georgia and Texas.
Great. He had 11. He had 11 touchdowns his junior year.
I'm trying to help him out a little bit.
55 receptions, 845 yards. I'm assuming he got injured his sophomore year because he only had 9 receptions, and then he only had 29 receptions his freshman season. So. I'm personally out on him. I just think takes plays off. He does not give 100% effort, and I just think he did help himself a little bit at the
Put Greg's
combine,
comment up there.
but so
Oh,
Man, you do
that's
what
smart.
You gotta do. You gotta
That's
pace
smart,
yourself.
Greg. Yeah.
yeah.
Arthritis in your fingers
But
cooking too
I
fast.
was watching him do the gauntlet, and to me, even that he just kind of faded out. He didn't finish the whole thing. There was when the quarterbacks were throwing, there's times that he just didn't complete the whole, run, and he didn't catch the ball. So I just think, in my opinion, he kind of picks and chooses when he wants to like go full speed or be all in.
Which is weird. Don't you think the combine, when you're literally being like tested for, would be a time where you'd want to, give it your old the old college try?
I was really looking like watching him after because I was surprised by his 40 time, right? So I was like, okay, let's see. And then I was really watching the gauntlet because I fell in love with Puka a little bit last year after the I talked about it before the combine, but his gauntlet was amazing and his speed was so good. So I think the gauntlet translates really well. And so I was just watching kind of all of it on Saturday, and it just was so he looked just so disinterested.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, his yards per route run too are pretty terrible, which I think tracks given that he takes plays off.
Sure.
His yards after the catch also, for being as fast as he is, didn't translate at all. His last 2 years he averaged 2.65 yards, which typical wide receivers who put up top 12, top 24 seasons in fantasy, they generally average a little over 5.5 yards. So he's well under that. So it's I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. How athletic he is and how bad his numbers are, it just something doesn't add up, and it's got to just be he doesn't play hard, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
You gotta want it. You gotta want it. Dude in the weight room used to yell that. He just you gotta want it.
Everything you got.
Anyway. So it sounds like none of us will have very much AD Mitchell.
No, thank you.
Okay, so we pop through these losers real quick here.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we can
Audric Estimate
that I loved. Yeah,
terrible 40 time. What I will say about Estimate is I really do like his vision and the way he moves with the ball in his hand, and I think he was tripped over a shoelace or something for this 4.71 because he's got 80-yard touchdown runs all throughout the past year.
He just came from the an all-you-can-eat buffet. I think that's what it was.
He just wanted to look extra beefy. Maybe he purposefully did this. Maybe he purposefully did this to get behind a good offensive line.
Here's what I'll say about the 40-yard dash is how often do players start on hands and knees, running backs, and then go to a dead ass sprint for 40 yards straight without having to cut or stop or do anything?
True.
So I don't know. If you watch his film, he's faster than that. I've seen him run away from corners, on long touchdown runs. I don't understand.
Yeah, it was weird, but I think it's gonna.
It's what it is.
I think now you're gonna be able to get him in the third round of a rookie draft, which is pretty good.
That's where I got all my Kyron shares, baby.
I personally think he is a good running back. So I think it will. With a lot of these running backs outside of the top two that we talked about already, I think a lot of these running backs will depend on where they land, obviously. And so I like what Greg said. If he lands with the Ravens, all wheels up. I like that.
Ooh,
baby.
That'd be real sweet. I'd be sad for Gus Bus.
I think Greg's hoping that because he just grabbed him in a.
Sure, that had nothing to do with him drafting him in our latest startup. But
right,
take it,
Bucky, old Bucky.
This one's bad.
Yeah, my comp for Audric Estimate is Brandon Jacobs though, because neither one is physical for their size. Neither here nor there. Bucky Irving, I was not into Bucky Irving's film even, so I'll let you guys talk
really.
About Bucky. Yeah, I
like his film. He's a good little.
I thought it was fine, but you know how I feel about the Pac-12 defenses.
I know you.
Okay,
do,
well,
he looks so good.
In my opinion, outside of the SEC, what defenses are that good though?
I
mean, the Big Ten is okay.
Yeah, the Big Ten will slap you in the face.
I can argue that the Big Ten's
Clemson.
Offense isn't very good either, outside of Michigan, and even their offense isn't that amazing. So like their defenses look better because they have like 12 to 6 games.
Utah plays good defense in the Pac-12, and that's generally the
that's
benchmark I
usually
look
what
to
I
see
try to
how they
pick.
did
Is I
against
try to
Utah.
find the Utah. Yeah, I try to find the Utah game. I'm like, somebody's gonna hit somebody in a Utah game.
But Bucky came in 5'9", 192, 450, 455. So he was undersized and he was slow. His relative speed score was garbage.
Oh my gosh! Oh
based
my
on
goodness.
that.
Zero pass blocking.
Just look elsewhere. Yeah, he's probably gonna drop. I would assume to like the 4th, maybe 5th round.
I'm still holding out hope. I have
But if he
him
gets draft
as
capital,
my...
I'm still in, baby.
Yep, I still have him as
Right.
my running back 6. I definitely need to adjust some of those guys though, so he might drop down to like RB8 for me. You know, but as I look at it, there's maybe 1 or 2 guys I can put over him. But yeah, I still like Bucky. I've always known he was a smaller back, so like that didn't really come in. I thought his weight came in a little bit. I think we talked about it last week, and I think he was on there as like somebody that we really would be interested in, or we were interested in seeing what he came in as weight. And unfortunately, he came in undersized, and so you know that's a big issue. And so we'll see. I think draft capital will be huge for him. I think there's probably a team out there that likes that type of running back. So we'll see if he goes in round 3 or 4. But
small, slow guys.
Yeah.
But
he can catch the ball really well.
One for everyone.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay. Keon Coleman. Maybe go back to basketball at this point.
He ran a.
Can you do it?
He ran a 4.61, which was weird because he also hit one of the fastest miles per hour in the gauntlet. So it's like,
yeah. So then people are like, he's Puka.
God,
people are spouting that off. He's not.
Puka. He's not. No, he wishes he was Puka. He can't separate. He doesn't do anything special. If you want to talk about a guy who has like a decent highlight film, but bad tape, Keon Coleman is that. He goes through long periods where he just disappears in games at a time because he's not overly physical for how big he is. He's not really fast enough to fit into his body either. So it's just, I don't understand it. Like he still gets mocked into like, late first, early second. Well, I don't see it.
I really don't like him. I'm not going to be drafting him, but I do think there's a ton of people that still like him for some reason. Like there's people that talk about him all the time that just like he will go in.
Find those people.
Early second, if you have an early second and somebody wants to come up for Keon Coleman, obviously you don't know if that's who they're coming up for, but like let them do it. Like Keon Coleman, I stay away in my opinion. Like Mitch just got him in our startup and like super late. I think it would have, like if we were just pulling all the rookies out, I think he got him as number 28 or 27, or even later than that. But in my opinion, that's where he should be. And so, yes, he had a good gauntlet. So a lot of people are like, well, he had a really good gauntlet, and that's what matters more. And so I think for him, what really matters is going to be where he lands. Like I've said this before already, kind of a cop-out answer. But if he lands in a team and they use him properly, I think he can be okay. I think one thing that did hurt him was he lost his quarterback, Jordan Travis.
Yeah.
So that was rough. But if you're a really good wide receiver, it at the end of the day, you should be helping that quarterback. Doesn't matter what.
Nobody was helping those quarterbacks. I watched some Florida State games because I was rooting for them for a while, but dude, it was really bad.
He did
get
LSU,
slapped in the face. Yeah, with a couple
week 1, and then he did virtually nothing the rest of the season.
Yeah. So
and then he got outplayed by Jaden Reed at Michigan State. So
I didn't even know he was on the team while watching Jaden Reed do things for what it's worth.
You go.
So
there you go.
And Troy Franklin.
Dude, his name's harder to say than it should be.
It is.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
That's a tough one. Little tongue twister there.
I got to say this first. He looked drunk in his gauntlet. Literally just going, oh my goodness gracious. He looked rough in the gauntlet, which is,
I have to go watch that.
He had an okay 40, but a lot of times, like I said, with Puka, obviously Puka is an outlier, but his gauntlet was super, super good. And there's other wide receivers this year that had really, really good gauntlet. That like Keon Coleman had a good gauntlet, but I'm not a big Keon Coleman guy. And so
Yeah.
that is one thing that I'm worried about a little bit. And so I think that's why we're starting to put Ladd over him, and even put some other guys over Troy Franklin. But I still think he's going to get the draft capital, right? I still think he's going to go maybe early second. So, I've seen him mocked even to the Chiefs at 32. But I don't think that happens anymore. I think he had a rough combine overall. And just watching that gauntlet was fun. Just go ahead and take a look if you haven't watched it.
I will. I'm
Watching it
sorry.
right now.
I'm just gonna watch it right now.
Yeah, so you're supposed to stay on the line, and he was just going all like weaving all over the place.
Yeah, that's tough.
I wasn't a fan of
maybe
the
he'll have a better
tape
pro day
either, to be honest with you. I thought he was fine. I don't get where all the buzz comes from though. Like there's a lot of fine plays and like he does like good things, but like there's nothing where I was like, oh my God, wow, like super exciting,
Sure.
It's just he was fine. I'm not gonna crush him for his tape, but I didn't love it either.
Fair. I think for as much hype as the wide receivers got in this year's class, like the top end of it is held up, but some of the 4 through like 6, 7, 8, those guys, and we've discovered a lot of warts on those guys, right? We've started to see a little bit of like, oh, maybe we overhyped them a little bit.
Yeah, and I do speed. His yak is really good. Those are I think the things that like really stick out. But it's rough when you have don't have the best combine. So the draft will tell. Though. The draft will tell.
Maybe he was made by Bo Nix rather than the other way around.
Oh, good Lord. Bo Nix.
You love to see it.
You guys ready to get water on your head?
Yeah, probably. I would. I don't think he's going in the first round anymore. I hope he does, but I don't.
If he does, it's going to be like that would be 5 or maybe even 6 quarterbacks in the first round. That's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah, I don't see that happening at this point in time. People have said that he could be a starter in the NFL, though. He could start some games, and I could see that, and he could operate an offense for sure. But first round, no. Anything else? Any final thoughts here?
So my only final thought was I saw this on Twitter or maybe in the Discord. I liked it. The first round draft trades. You going over under 3.5? I think obviously it was I think it was a prop, so that's why it was 3.5.
That's a good. I was going to say I feel good about 3 happening.
So you're going to go with the under?
Yeah, I think so.
I
wouldn't be.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. But once it all, all happens, I think 3 sounds about right.
I'll do the over.
Sure. Look at you.
Let's go.
Yeah. People will be becoming crazy.
Moving up to Bo Nix.
Oh, good Lord. Right up to 32.
Exactly.
That would be great.
I'd be so mad.
For the fourth trade of the draft, that would be awesome.
Oh my Lord! If it's for the 4th trade, I guess I'll win that part of it. I'll take it. Take my W's where I could get them. All right, you guys ready to get out of here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks all for joining the chat.
Yeah. Tonight. Thank you, everybody. Peace out.
Deuces.